Well, it's my honor, guys, to introduce you today, our speaker, Joe Weber. Joe is been in the industry of hospitality and leadership for over 30 years. Joe was 17 years with Brinker International, which was a part of the Chili's Bar and Grill restaurant. He had held several positions, such as general manager, regional training director, as well as area director of operations. The last 11 years, he's been running and operating Chick-fil-A in Castle Rock, where he grew that store from 1.8 million to over 11 million in revenue. So much so, he's been entrusted with another store. One of only 10% of Chick-fil-A owners are granted the opportunity to have an additional store, which he just opened there in Castle Rock on Promenade. And you'll have to go check him out there as well. But he also has been a guest speaker at Sam's Club, World Headquarters, Colorado Rockies, and several universities speaking on hospitality, leadership, and customer service. I just wanted to share this one brief story. One of my favorite things about getting to meet Joe was when I went in to meet him at his store, and I walked in and I was greeted. You know, they have young adults working there, high school kids, college kids, and I said, "Hey, I'm here to meet with Joe Weber," and they just obviously they're known for world-class customer service, and these kids just said, "Hey, can I get you something to drink? Can I get you a coffee? Anything to eat?" And I was like, "I'm good, but thank you so much." And then as soon as Joe came out, he's like, "Hey, man, can I get you anything to drink, eat, coffee? What do you want?" And I said, "They just asked me. I love that. Obviously it's part of their culture." And I said, "You must train them up on that." And he goes, "Well, actually, not really." He's like, "Anytime I meet with him, that's what I do. I offer him something to drink, something to eat. I love my team." And it was a small thing, but it meant a lot. And as we were talking about the way he hires people, that's one of the most important things we can do, right, is the way we hire. And it was kind of interesting. I said, "You probably get some of the best and brightest, and people know you're known for customer service." And he said, "Yeah, we get our fair share of high-quality kids and students." And he goes, "But I love to take the ones that are unwanted, the ones that don't get the resume looked at, that get passed over and almost maybe flunk an interview or something like that." He goes, "We welcome them in. We welcome them into our culture. We love on them. We serve them. We teach them how to take care of people by taking care of them." And he gets great work out of those kids. So I just love that atmosphere of servant leadership. And so without further ado, would you guys put your hands together for Joe Weber?
Thank you. Two tidbits. One, I had to sit down. I don't know if you guys saw me. I was standing over here waiting for the introduction to get done, and I had to sit down because I was standing up, and I just have an uncontrollable urge to walk around to the tables and make sure your chicken's okay. So it's like I got to sit down. I'm supposed to be here to talk, not walk around and serve everybody. But it's just I guess it's a habit predisposition to do that. So second tidbit of knowledge. I thought you were going to let this out, but like he was talking about enjoying your potato chips. Another thing about those potato chips you might not know is that you can actually get those in the restaurant. So top secret, it's not on the menu board, it's not up there anywhere, but if you ever feel like not having waffle fries or something, you can actually order a side of those chips. We actually had them, they were designed exclusively for catering, but the demand got to be that we have to have them. We don't put them on the menu board because we would probably sell through them too quick. So it's another thing about our macaroni and cheese. It was designed to be a catering exclusive item. And when we tried to roll it out as a catering item, everybody got so mad that it was catering only that we had to serve it in the restaurant. So that's how that came to be as well. So anyway, I appreciate that. The other thing too, but tidbit, we'll see. I'll hopefully you can take notes. I want to save time for questions at the end. That was my joke with Pastor Scotty before. Was like he said, "Hey, can you come talk about Chick-fil-A leadership?" And I said, "Sure, you got to give me a half hour to explain Chick-fil-A leadership to everybody." So kind of a complicated task and to do that. But I do want to talk about, again, like what my leadership style is. Obviously, I'm blessed to be working for a company that values leadership, values systems and processes, and has a great identity, and then I'm able to fit right along with that. So I think one of the things when I talk to a lot of leaders out there, even for my leaders, even for myself, I think one of the things that gets in the way of being and becoming the best leader that many of us want to be is, is that we're busy, right? I don't think it's that anybody in this room isn't smart. That we're not smart enough, that we don't try our best to try to figure things out. I don't think it's that we just don't get it. I don't think anybody's here because I don't get leadership. We get leadership. We just have a hard time getting around to it. It's just that we're so incredibly busy. Most people here are smart. I feel like I'm smart. I feel like a lot of my restaurant leaders are smart. But we just get really, really tied up on being really good at meaningless things. You know, I talk to people who are leaders, and the thing that's in their brains is baseball batting averages and what the standings are in baseball and football games and names of celebrity babies and latest headline news, and they're busy opening mail, paying bills, doing all kinds of busy work, and then they get focused on those things. But I think leaders have potential, but we misaim our potential. I think what we do when we misaim our potential is we get busy doing those incredibly busy things that keep us, right? Busy work, mail, computer, email. But multitasking, we're multitasking time wasters as opposed to multitasking things that are leading our team in the right direction. So, and sometimes our busy work is not our life's work. As a matter of fact, most of the time our busy work is not our life's work. But I think leadership should be your life's work if you want to be good at it and you want to be a good leader. It's got to become your life's work. So we're very busy with activity, but a great quote I heard is, activity disjointed from purpose and strategy is just distraction. So again, I think we all realize as leaders we're all very busy, and I appreciate you guys taking time to come out into, take an hour out of your lunch to come, listen to me and talk about this. But really a key takeaway, and I try to remember that kind of stuff, is activity for activity's sake is not good. So we're going to talk about how do we as a restaurant, and how do we as a company focus on purpose and strategy. And then really, not only is it a distraction, I don't think there's anything that costs us more in our lives, whether it's our personal lives or our leadership lives, than distraction. I think distraction takes us away from our goals as husbands, fathers, wives, friends, and it takes us away from our goals as leaders in the restaurant as well. So, and this is kind of, this is a simple little picture up here. I don't know if anybody ever played this game when they went to high school or a church camp or anything like that, where you have to do this trust circle and sit on everybody's lap. But I was trying to find a picture that really kind of summed up what my approach to leadership is in my restaurant, and then this is it. Basically, we're going to talk about processes, and we get to the end, I'll summarize and say I think leadership is a process, and all those processes have to be connected. And one thing is, that's why I said it's kind of hard. That was my internal thoughts, like I don't know how to talk about something in a half hour, because if you ask me a question about one thing, I can't separate one process we do or one thing that we do from hiring a team member to how we train that team member to what that team member's experience is, to how we serve a chicken sandwich without it being attached and connected to something else. Like everything we do is supported by that thing behind it. And if I pull something out, the whole thing falls apart. So someone would say, tell me how you hire great team members. And I appreciate that recognition. We say, hey, you seem like you hire great team members. How do you do it? That's a really long explanation because it's tied to 23 other things. And if I can explain all 23, then I think you'll get the picture. So what I'm going to try to do today is just kind of divide things up into the three biggest buckets I can that are the biggest topics that we have, kind of put the big rocks in the jar first, and we'll talk about those. And so I think you all know that Chick-fil-A is busy. If you've been by the restaurant, that's what I hear, right? We got to wait in line, or the drive-thru's wrapped around the building, or you're on the street or things like that. As a matter of fact, that's why we had to open the second restaurant, is because we just got to be over capacity and we weren't serving enough customers and we weren't serving the community the way we needed to be with having one restaurant. But we are busy, and we're open from a leadership perspective to think about this. We're open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 6 days a week. So that's 16 hours a day, but we're operating that restaurant for 18 hours a day because we get there an hour before and then we stay an hour late. We got to open it, we got to close it. We're the highest volume QSR restaurant in America. Not Chick-fil-A Castle Rock, but Chick-fil-A in itself. Highest volume QSR in America. We're also the highest volume sales per square foot restaurant in America, which is saying a lot. I don't know if anybody knows who number 2 in the country is. Cheesecake Factory. Okay? But Cheesecake Factory has a little advantage over us, sales per square foot, and they have this little thing they call alcohol that they sell, okay? And most of their plates there cost about $15 to $18, where we're serving a chicken sandwich for about $3.99. But we still do more sales per square foot than Cheesecake Factory does. So highest average volume restaurant in the QSR, highest sales per square foot restaurant, and at peak times we'll serve about 130 cars per hour going through the drive-thru. So if you do the math on that, that's a car every 26 seconds that we're serving through the drive-thru. And that's just drive-thru, okay? But we also have front counter dining, front counter carryout. We also have mobile carryout, mobile curbside delivering, and catering all going on at the same time. And we'll do 1,200 to 1,800 transactions per day, which translate to about 3,600 to 5,000 guests per day coming through each restaurant, and that's with 175 team members. And as was mentioned at the beginning, all of that with 60% of my team members are under the age of 18 working their first job. Okay, and 60% of those are working part-time, less than 18 hours a week. So we've got to do the highest volume restaurant, highest volume sales with under 18 average age working 20 hours a week and get everybody on the same page so that hopefully when you come into the restaurant, you get a great tasting chicken sandwich every single time. And then you have team members that are greeting you every single time with kindness and treating you with the honor, dignity, and respect. So, like I said, I want to break this up into 3 buckets that we'll kind of talk about as we move along from that. So the 3 big buckets I want to encourage you with today, that what do we do? What do I do from a leadership perspective? Well, first and foremost, you have to start with why. And I'll explain that in a second. And then we move into systems and processes, and then linear execution are the 3 big things. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the term Start With Why, or who the author of that book is. So if you haven't read it, it's a book by Simon Sinek. I don't have Start With Why because I loaned it out to one of my leaders, but I do have his other book called Find Your Why. But if you look up Simon Sinek, its last name is Sinek. Awesome book, and a lot of the things that we do were already founded on that book, so we didn't start doing this. It just kind of helped us kind of solidify our purpose when we went through and read that book. But we'll talk about Start With Why, systems and processes. So first let me say Start With Why. So Start With Why, I think you'll see up on this next slide, is he basically came up with a concept called a golden circle. And the golden circle just says this. It says there's 3 concepts to everything we do in a business, in leadership, and that's why, how, and what. Okay, why, how, and what. And if you can read up there, it says what. What does what mean? Well, every organization on the planet knows what they do. These are products, or these are the products they sell or the services that they offer. Okay, right? So our what is chicken sandwich, waffle fries, spicy sandwich nuggets, chicken minis, the Coca-Cola. How? Some organizations know how they do it. These are the things that make them special or set them apart from the competition. I think anybody in this room could probably say, hey, well, Chick-fil-A does some how really, really well. The question is in your businesses, in your life, do you know how? I mean, do you really know how? Because it says every organization knows what, but not everybody knows how. Even fewer organizations know why. Okay, very few organizations know why they do what they do. Okay, why is not about making money. We realize that. That's what business is about, making money, right? Why is money is a result, okay? Why is a purpose. It's a cause or it's a belief, and it's the very reason that your organization exists. Okay, so next one will show that what we do and what our focus on why is because as a customer, okay, for our business and a customer potentially in your business, customers have to experience our business from the outside in. Okay, so that's the first thing you're experiencing, right? You're experiencing the chicken sandwich. Okay, you're experiencing the cleanliness of the restaurant when you walk up, and how does the Coke taste, and are my waffle fries hot? Okay, that's the what. Okay, the how then is how are we doing it? How are we selling that chicken? Are we doing it with a smile on our face? Are we doing it with eye contact? Are we doing it with a friendly environment? Are we doing it with a personal connection? And then beyond that, you may never get to know why we're doing it. Matter of fact, I don't think anybody in the restaurant habit, right? I don't think anybody in the room knows why I think I'm doing what we were doing. But I can guarantee you that every single person in my restaurant, both of the restaurants, knows exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And that's what translates to the what. So we have to execute from the inside out. So I'll guess, and that's one of the things you have to focus on, I think, as a leader, is that guests and whoever your guests and customers are always going to experience things from the outside in, but we have to execute from the inside out. The next slide will show that the problem is with most leaders, most companies, is that they try to execute from the inside out, the outside in. They're trying to start at the what. Like if I'm trying to execute just the chicken sandwich and just the Coke and the cup, we'll drive ourselves crazy at our volume, okay? Because I can't manage all those little pieces. I have to allow the team around us to manage all those pieces for us and take personal ownership on it. But a lot of times we try to manage that what, and then because of that we don't differentiate itself. So not picking on anybody else or anybody else in the room, but I compare ourselves from QSRs. I look at that a lot, and it's like people always ask me if I worry about Burger King or a McDonald's or a Raising Cane's or whatever plopping down next to me, and I say I don't ever worry about it because people will go there and they're going to try them for about a month, but they execute from a what perspective. It's like everything, their whole identity is chicken tenders or it's a Whopper. It stops. So the restaurants are executing from the what, and if you're executing from the what, as a leader and as a business, you're just never going to compete. Somebody competing from a why is going to win hands down, and I think that's what we do. I think we do that and we focus that we've got to compete from a why every day. So why are we the highest volume QSR in America, and why are we the highest sales per square foot? Well, because we're executing from a why perspective instead of from that what. And so I'll tell you what our why is. So two things. What attracted me to Chick-fil-A, first and foremost, was the first time I met Truett Cathy, I thought the guy was off his rocker. I mean, I thought he was crazy because, here I am being a restaurant operator working for Chili's for 17 years, wanting to come over there. I'm talking about the chicken sandwich, and all I can hear him talk about when it's a chicken sandwich is like, hey, he said he wanted to change the world. Hey, what did you want to do when you were younger? It's like, I wanted to change the world. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? It's like, well, I'm going to sell a chicken sandwich. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, what kid wants to grow up and change the world by selling a chicken sandwich, right? You want to run political office, you want to become an astronaut, I want to be a football player, I want to have some sort of platform. But the more you talk to him, he was dead serious about it, because he was saying, well, it's not about the chicken sandwich, okay? It's not about me selling a chicken sandwich, it's about how I sell it and why I'm selling it. Okay, that's what the difference is. And then I kind of like, okay, I got to get out of this business and go work for Chick-fil-A. So this next slide will show you what the why is. So Chick-fil-A, first and foremost, has a very powerful why, and that's our corporate purpose. Our corporate purpose is to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us, and to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And one of the things I love about that corporate purpose is that if you didn't know that was Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose, would you know that's Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose? Because where in that corporate purpose does it mention anything about us being a restaurant company? I mean, it doesn't. And yet, what we do is sell chicken sandwiches, right? That's what we do. Most people don't know the why we're doing it. We know why we're doing it, okay, because we're here to glorify God. And we want to be a faithful steward. And we believe by selling a chicken sandwich, we can be a positive influence on you, and we can be a positive influence on your community and our community, okay, by how we sell it and why we're selling it. I've taken that down a step level, so for our team, and hopefully, again, I'll gladly welcome the challenge too. If any of you go into one of the restaurants, grab a team member and say, what's your mission, vision, and purpose here at the restaurant? And they should answer to positively influence others by being and becoming the best version of yourself. So that's what we do. I said that's what Steve was mentioning. We take great teenagers. We take teenagers who have been, potentially rejected because they can't work enough hours, or they may not be the smartest. They may have disability. And we say, hey, you can still come in and learn how to be the best version of yourself. And anybody wanting to be the best version of themselves adds value to our business. So that's what we do. So we start with why. And that's the big bucket. So what does why look like? Now, that's easy said, right? But it's not just a poster on the wall, okay? You can't just say, hey, we're going to start with why. If you want to write down on your note card at the bottom, hey, what's the one thing I took away? Start with why. That's great. But you either have to go read the book, or you have to go back and start answering some really, really hard questions, okay? And detailed questions like, what does why really look like? So, that didn't show up on here very well. Huh. Anyway, this is on my slide. This is a pie chart. This is a pie chart, but it's not shown up there as a pie. So anyway, why is in the middle for us. You can see down at the bottom, to positively influence others by being and becoming the best version of yourself. Why is in the center, okay? And then around that, we decided, how are we going to do that? Well, we've got to put systems in place. And what are those systems for us? Well, it's execution, guest experience, our community involvement, communication, personal growth, and team member culture. So those are the systems. And then systems are made up of a lot of processes, okay? So systems, the big rock, and then inside of that are all the processes. So we went through and identified we have a lot of processes, but what are the 6 most critical, most important processes? If we're gonna focus 80% of our energy on 20% of our processes, what are they? And we decided it's execution, guest experience, communication, personal growth, team member culture, and then we went through and identified the processes. So just to kind of make this a little bit more clear, the next slide will show, I'll pick one of these things out. So up there in the middle of all this, you see a word called a game plan, okay? But not just a word on a piece of paper. What does a game plan look like? We have a game plan every single day in the restaurant. How do we translate our why to what we do? Well, we do it by, I'll show you what a game plan looks like on the next one. So this is what a game plan looks like. So every time the restaurant starts off a shift, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we put all of our team members on a game plan. All the game plans are color-coded for who's a team member, who's a team leader, who's an operational excellence leader, and who's a director. And all their positions are predetermined, okay, based on why we want them there and what they're going to be doing. So each position in itself is defined by why, how, and what. So you'll see that that we have team leaders that are in the red in critical positions like bagger, window, register, and iPad, because those are 100% guest contact, so we want someone who's been with us for at least 6 months that could be able to answer questions and be able to train new team members alongside them. And then we have operational excellence leaders all in one area of the business, whether it's drive-through, front counter, dining room, and then we'll have our leader free to float, depending on where they're needed most. The numbers on there are for us to determine like what is next. So we dive down all the way into how and what are we going to do, but what we're going to do has to go back to like our why. So what is the last question that we ask? So if we want to deliver great service, then we say, well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have the right number of people in the right number of places doing the right thing. So I know that when we go to write a schedule, the first person that gets scheduled is that bagger, because it's the drive-through bagger. That's 60% of our business every day. So 60% of our business on an annual basis comes through our drive-through. So there's no more important person than the bagger. So like that's person number one. We can't start a shift until person number one is in place. And then we go all the way down through. So when I walk in the restaurant, it's easy for us to know that we're in the right setup, because we can say, hey, if Jenna was running a shift, okay, and she was floating, that automatically indicates to me that we have at least 16 people on, because she shouldn't be floating. If we didn't have 16 people on, she would need to bump down to the next spot or get onto register 6. So anyway, that's kind of maybe too much detail, but I wanted to let you see that, hey, we talk about starting with why, but then we start with why, we work our way out to the what, and then the what has to get defined, and it's got to go back and support our why. Hopefully that makes sense. Because you'll see, like I said, on register and what we do with team members and why those team members realize that. Next slide, you'll see that just on this game plan. So register 5, 6, 7, and 8. Everything on here is intentional. That's the thing about when you start with why, you have to make sure things are intentional. So for example, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if you walked into our restaurant, okay, the first register at Founders Parkway, the first register you came to would be register 8. And then you work your way down to 6, 7, and 5. So you'll see that we have a team leader on either end, team members in the middle. Why do we have team members in the middle? Because we're starting off with 16-year-olds who I said are working their first job, right? Okay, we're our own worst enemy, because can you imagine being 16 years old, coming in and working your first job? We're trying to teach you how to run a register, and you look up and there's a line of adults, all of you waiting out the door, staring at them like, hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. That's a lot of pressure. So we intentionally designed this so that we have our newest team members in the middle, in 6 or 7, with a seasoned person on their left and on their right to protect them. Okay, so they can take 45 days to 60 days to kind of get their feet under them, so they can focus on our why, which is being a positive influence, because the why is the most important. So then we go back, and all of the what's that we do have to support our why, because that's what we're there to do, right? I hope that makes sense. It's making sense to me, obviously, because I'm trying to explain Chick-fil-A, but a lot of people just do the what, like, well, we have to have people on. It's like, okay, you have to have people on, but that's a what. But if your what's not, if you can't take your what and directly link it back to your why, then that's where the busyness comes in. We talked about at the beginning, right? We're so busy running around doing activity, okay, but if your activity isn't supported by systems and processes, then it's just a distraction. So how do we make sure in all of the craziness that we have at Chick-fil-A that we're not distracted and we can make an individual guest connection while it's processes, and making sure that everybody knows what the why is. So on the next slide, we're going back to that why, or going back to that thing, you'll see that this is actually divided. So the top half of this, when it comes to execution, guest experience, and community, that's everything that's dedicated towards you all, okay? These are the processes and the systems that are dedicated towards what we need to execute to take care of the guests. The bottom half of that that's going to be highlighted is everything that's dedicated to our team members, our team member experience. So we realize that at least half of everything what we have to do has to be dedicated to that team member experience for them to turn around and give you because they're my first customer. My first customer of the day isn't you, it's the team member. When I walk in the door, when they show up at the restaurant, they're our first customer of the day, and we have to take care of them if we expect them to take care of you. So dialing down even further into that, I think again, so basically what I do, I get even further, like I don't even worry about the top part, okay? Simple thing for me is like the guest experience, I don't worry about your experience. I don't mean I don't worry about it. Obviously that's a lifeblood of what we do, but I'm a big believer, so we get so tuned into our why that I believe that if we take care of our team member experience so well, that part's gonna take care of itself. I know that's oversimplified, and it is oversimplified because we have a lot of systems and processes, but that's just what we believe, and so much so that you'll see that my leadership structure coming up here is 100% dedicated to the team member experience. So I have 4 directors, okay, college graduates that are salaried managers in the restaurant, and their leadership roles in my restaurant are onboarding director, training director, development director, and experience director. So I brought Jenna with me today, who's one of our onboarding directors, but I'm in a restaurant operations business, but I don't have a drive-through director. I don't have a kitchen director. I don't have a sales director. I don't have a marketing director. I don't do those types of things because we all know why we're there. So everybody is responsible for the guests, for the team member experience, making sure that we execute hiring these kids, getting them on, making sure they're onboarded, they're protected, they know exactly what their job is, how to be successful, what the processes are, and then I just believe that the guest experience is going to take care of itself. So I know that's oversimplified, and hopefully everybody has a great experience and realizes that we're not taking that guest experience lightly. That's just kind of our approach. So that's the first bucket that we have on there. Second bucket, I'm going to have to go speed up my time here. Second bucket is biggest threat. So real quick question on what anybody thinks what the biggest threats to my business might be as a Chick-fil-A. And I'm going to write them down. Okay. Untrained people? Okay. Are you guys in a restaurant? Okay. That's cheating. That's cheating. Okay, just to speed up, and a lot of times the answers that I get when it comes to like, hey, what's our biggest threat to our business? Well, hey, it's government, road construction, it's other restaurants opening next to you, it's King Soopers, it's people coming out with new menu items, all that kind of stuff, and none of that for me is true. So the biggest threats, we identified the biggest threats to our business. So the second thing we do is we identify what's our biggest threats to our business, okay, as a systems and process. And for me, it's communication, standardizing roles and expectations, and noise. Okay, that's what it is, because we're going back to our team member experience. So we've got to be very, like I said, if Raising Cane's opens next to me, I won't lose a minute of sleep. I just don't worry about it because I can't control anything about them. What I can control is our communication, how well we're standardized on our processes, and how good our roles and expectations are. And if we execute all of those things, okay, because leaders are communicating that stuff, then I don't think anybody can touch us. So that's always been our approach, is we want to do that. So as you'll see, this just kind of compares these two things side by side. So since we're focused on that, we dial all the way down just to that why, that one little corner of a why, team member experience. We have our entire leadership team, okay, built around delivering on that why, and we have all of our biggest threats identified to help us make sure that we're focused on that. And just so you don't think that's like, again, like I said, it's not necessarily a poster on a wall. We'll get to that. But the next one, the other thing we have to do as well is we focus on very, very heavily on lead measures. I don't know if anybody knows the difference between lead measures, lag measures, or has heard that term before. There's a lot of lag measures when it comes to sales, and I gave you guys a lot of lag measures as far as what our high sales are, but we focus exclusively on lead measures in the restaurant, which are behaviors, okay? So when we hold team members accountable, when we train team members, we hold them accountable to what their behaviors are. We don't go around and say, hey, we got a guest complaint yesterday, or hey, our guest satisfaction score is a 73 this week. They don't know what that means. I know what that means, but they don't know what that means. But what they do know is, hey, was I on time? Was my uniform correct? Okay, was I in my position? Did I smile? We hold them accountable to smiling, not to what our guest satisfaction score is, again, because we believe if we take care of what their behaviors were, then you're going to have a great experience. And that's why I say I don't think we have to train them on specifically offering somebody a guest when they walk into the restaurant something, because they know we already do that and they know that's what's expected. So just to show you, it's technically not a poster on the wall, but this is a training room, our Chick-fil-A training room, so you can see that this is what we do. So even in our training room, we're talking about it. The biggest threats and our start with why, I have those hung down there. Like, they're not posters on the wall. Those are the pillars of everything we talk about. So when we brainstorm on those whiteboards about what we're going to do for hiring, team member training, whatever we have coming up, everything has to come back to, does this address a threat that we have, and does it answer our why? So for everything that we do, we make sure that we do that. So that's kind of what we go through. That's the system and process we go through. And then last but not least would be, I think the end of this is that I think leadership is a process. You can skip to the next one really quick, because that just goes back to what I was talking about. Everything is dependent upon everything else. We see everybody in the restaurant self as a leader. They're responsible for their role, their behaviors, and when we dial it down to behaviors, it enables somebody who's a team member who's only 16 or 17 to lead themselves, because they know exactly what they're responsible for. And you can lead yourself because you're making choices on behaviors. You're not making choices that are going to influence what my food cost is, what my labor cost is, what my utility bill was this month, or what our guest satisfaction score was, or what our drive-through time was. The only thing that they can do is focus on what their behaviors are. And if they're behaving in the right way, and we can lead them to teach them that processes and following processes will lead them to success and personal success, then we'll be successful as well. So those are the things that we try to kind of go down as far as this, collective leadership approach. And then last but not least, we said is linear execution. So linear execution just means you have to, like I said, you have to start with why. You have to move forward through your systems and processes, okay, and then you can move on to everything else you want to do. For us, then we can get to customer service. But we can't even kind of start talking about customer service or the end result of the chicken sandwich if we don't know why, we don't have specific systems and processes in place. So for me, that's kind of the summary for me, is the three biggest buckets, and just realizing that I said leadership is more of a process for me, and that's kind of what our approach is to it. So.